All right, legends, it's the day of the big game, Bayern Munich versus Celtic. Either the end of the road for us in the Champions League this season, or perhaps the most famous night in modern Celtic history. It's going to be one or the other, and I'm going to build ahead to the game later on. We'll do the press conferences that took place yesterday, predicted 11 officials, general thoughts on the game. But first, let's catch back up with Mark Lovell, the German football journalist and Bayern Munich expert. He joined us last week. He did have some technical difficulties, but we're good to go this time round. So let's kick off with that. Okay, Mark, how are you?
Doing well, Hamish. How are you?
Not bad. Feeling kind of, well, not sure quite how to feel about tonight's game because Celtic played relatively well last week, as you'll know. But it's a daunting task tonight in Munich, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's going to be a cold one, Hamish. It's for all those Celtics fans already in the Bavarian capital. They're going to have to wrap up warm, minus temperatures. So it's going to be a cold, chilly night in Munich. And also the Allianz Arena is really cold and windy. It really, or maybe that's just the media area, it gets really some ill winds and it really just, it gets very cold. So hopefully the Celtic team will give plenty for the fans to celebrate and warm up.
Yeah, we should just confirm you're not actually at the Allianz Arena right now. It's a very good background though, Mark, I must say, and it looks a bit warmer than it probably will be this evening. Is that kind of typical weather this time of year in Munich?
Well, it's February. It does get colder in the UK, that's for sure, and it's very cold at the moment, but it's dry and it's pretty lovely. You just need for anybody, any fans travelling on the day, they need a warm coat and a nice green Celtic hat.
So well, away from the weather, will Celtic fans enjoy Munich as a city?
Well, many would have been there before, I presume, 2017. They might have fond memories of that game, but there's plenty to do. I wouldn't stay in the Hofbräuhaus, which is like a famous tourist spot, for longer than 2 hours, because you might miss the game, but there's always stuff to do. The Scottish fans, we saw them at the Euros in Munich for the opener. They'll be made more than welcome in Munich, and I'm sure everyone will have a good time. Obviously, they'll be hoping for a Celtic win, a miracle in Munich.
Yeah, I was actually there in the summer and actually got a ticket to the opening game. Didn't go too well. Callum McGregor would have been playing that day, Anthony Ralston as well. But it's an amazing stadium. It's my second time at the Allianz Arena, and the atmosphere when it's full is electric, and I guess that will be the same for the game tonight. I think 5,000 Celtic fans. I'm not sure if they'll all have tickets, maybe a slightly smaller allocation than that. But the stadium will be packed and should be a great atmosphere. Is it a tough atmosphere for the players to deal with?
Well, I think the Bayern fans will be, they'll be confident of success, but they'll feed off the noise from the Celtic fans. I mean, the Celtic fans will be making plenty of noise. They'll travel in expectation and hope and make a good atmosphere, and Bayern fans are able to create their own atmosphere. They'll have plenty of flags and maybe a tifo ready. They love all these on the big European nights. I'm sure it'll be a great atmosphere, and plenty to look forward to.
Yeah. Just on Bayern Munich at the weekend, they drew 0-0 away to Bayer Leverkusen, which generally you would say is a decent enough result away from home against the champions from last year, their closest challengers this year. Seems like their performance wasn't particularly great. I believe it was the first time in recorded history since 1992 they hadn't had a shot on target and a half, or a shot on goal even possibly. What was the story at the weekend for Bayern?
Well, they got a 0-0 draw against their nearest challengers. It retains an 8-point advantage. No one will remember in May when they're champions. No one will remember that they failed to really mount a challenge on the Leverkusen goal. It was a good, solid performance, coming only a few days after a tough trip to Glasgow and play Celtic. Not much rest in their legs. Leverkusen were fully rested. Leverkusen should have won the game. They'll be kicking themselves, but Bayern won't care. Their attention will already be on this important second leg against Celtic.
Yeah, it really does seem like this is a pretty big tie for Bayern, and I mean that might be stating the obvious given that it's a Champions League knockout and they clearly want to go and win the competition. As you mentioned last week, the final is in their stadium, which I guess is something people probably forget about a little bit. It makes it a bigger deal for them. But I think Vincent Kompany made 4 changes at 60 minutes on Saturday, so clearly trying to keep players fresh for this one as well. So it's it's a big tie this for Bayern, and they were pretty good last week, I thought.
They were good. I think they thrived on the atmosphere. I mean, they had a bit of luck with the referee. I've seen referees give at least one penalty. The disallowed goal early on. So Celtic didn't really get the run of the ball, and they've left themselves a lot to do in Munich tonight. They haven't got a great record in Germany. Bayern have been impressive on home soil against Scottish teams. They've won 5 times in a row against Scottish teams at home, and whenever they've won the first leg, Hamish, they've always progressed. The last 13 times, whenever they won the first leg, taking an advantage into the second leg, they've always progressed. The last time they didn't do that was against Inter Milan 2010, 2011, when they lost on away goals. And I was there that night. That was against Louis van Gaal's Bayern team. And seems a long time ago. What's that? That's 14, 15 years ago. Wow.
Yeah. They haven't even lost in the Champions League at home since, I think it's April 2021, which may not seem that long ago, but I think it's 20 games ago. And as I said yesterday, Real Madrid have been there in that time, Manchester City, and Celtic need to win tonight in 90 minutes to obviously take it to extra time or whatever. So, I mean, do you see any hope for Celtic tonight? Is there a way Celtic can make the Bayern fans and team a bit anxious? Because I guess all the expectation is on them.
Yeah, Hamish, it's going to be tough. They have to stay in the game. They have to stay in the game and believe that they can score. A 1-0 win takes it to extra time. Yeah, and that's going to be, you can see Celtic scoring, but unfortunately they're likely to concede as well. So, how do you see it? You mean you're the Celtic expert. How can they play it?
Yeah, I think clearly keeping it tight is the obvious thing to do. I was saying yesterday I would almost sign up for a scenario where it's still goalless or level in the game going into the final 5-10 minutes, and then we have 5 or 10 minutes to try and grab a goal. I think right now I would potentially sign up for that. I think my big fear tonight is that something similar to Dortmund happens and we lose early goals and the game is over and the tie is over very quickly. I don't want the team just to go out with a whimper, though. Also, I'd like us to really feel like we tried everything to try and win the tie, but it's such a fine balancing act, because I think you still have to be really tight and stay in the game, but then give yourself long enough to really try and find that goal. I'm always an optimist, and there's always part of you as a fan, you'll know, that believes you can beat the big guns. But yeah, it's with my head rather than my heart, I think it's just going to be extremely difficult.
Well, I was following the Villa game in Birmingham. And Villa went 2 goals up, but Celtic came back. But and it was 2-2 at half time, I recall. So they are able to recover. It's the first 15 minutes really need to be strong and firm in defence. And it was interesting to see Harry Kane miss training today. So Vincent Kompany said at the press conference. There's nothing major. Maybe it was watching the Leverkusen game at the weekend. Maybe it was something to do with his jaw. Maybe something like that. But it wasn't anything serious. I expect Kane to line up for the record German champions in Munich tonight.
Anything else, Mark? Any other things you want to impart on us before you head?
I'd like to wish all the Celtic fans a nice time in the Bavarian capital. Hope they have some, nice. Well, there'll definitely be cold beers in this weather, and I hope they have a nice time and safe travels and enjoy the everything that Munich has to offer. And hope they get this miracle in Munich. Hope that they can somehow find something. Maybe Manuel Neuer will throw one into his own net. Who knows?
That was Mark Lovell joining me and using the phrase "Miracle in Munich" several times, which certainly will be getting uttered by a few people, more than a few people if we somehow do manage to go through tonight. Right, let's talk yesterday and today's game and all that stuff. We had press conferences yesterday. Let's start with Bayern Munich. Jamal Musiala was their player put forward. He spoke positively about Nicholas Kuhn, who he had shared the dressing room with in the Bayern Munich second team a number of years ago now. He also brought up the aforementioned Germany versus Scotland match from the Euros in the summer, the first match of that tournament. Said it was one of the funnest matches of his career. He was scintillating that night, as Callum McGregor will know. So let's hope not for a repeat of that this evening. In terms of Bayern, the big story with them ahead of this game that Mark actually mentioned is that Harry Kane missed training yesterday. Vincent Kompany was asked about this at his press conference and said, "It's nothing bad. We haven't had a lot of time to recover. Sometimes you need an extra rest day. We'll see how he feels tomorrow, but it's nothing bad." Now, that answer was actually translated from German. Kompany was then asked, I think it was the final question of the press conference, he was asked by one of the Scottish journalists just to clarify what was happening with Harry Kane. And basically Kompany said, "I tried to blur the lines with my first answer. I threw a smoke bomb up and saw what happened." And he finished by saying, "We'll see tomorrow." Kane's going to play. Don't believe any of this stuff about Harry Kane not playing. In terms of the Celtic stuff, we had Kasper Schmeichel as the player. The most interesting revelation coming from his press conference actually wasn't to do with tonight's game at all. It was that he had been very close to signing for Bayern Munich back in late 2022. Now, I actually can't remember this at all, but apparently, I think 7 or 8 days after Germany went out of the World Cup in Qatar, Manuel Neuer sustained a broken leg in a skiing accident, missed a hell of a lot of time. And Schmeichel was at Nice in France at the time and was very, very close to signing for Bayern. I think he even said he was like packed and ready to go to the airport. Obviously, the deal didn't come to pass, which Schmeichel says is a bit of a regret not getting to play for Bayern Munich. But he also reiterated that he's very happy that, everything has led him to where he is at the moment at Celtic. Bayern eventually went for Jan Sommer. But yeah, Schmeichel very close to signing for Bayern just a few years ago as well. We also had Brendan Rodgers in front of the media. He confirmed that Jota is fit enough to start tonight's game if required. He was asked a fair bit about Borussia Dortmund and gave his best answer, or answers actually yet, on what he feels the team learned that night. Rodgers said, "I think you can't become too emotional at this level. I think that was clearly what happened in the performance in Dortmund. In the Dortmund game, we chased the game. I think that's been a big learning for us from that game. If you're not tight and you're not stable and you're not compact and you're not concentrated and you leave space for world-class players, you'll get punished." So yeah, and then we've taken it into our games at Atalanta and other games where we've been calm in our defence. So that's what you need to be at this level. You need to be in balance and have that calmness to your defending, but also then provide that threat with the ball. I do still think we're working on that threat with the ball away from home in Europe. I think that's the next step for this team. They've shown that at Celtic Park we can really hurt teams. I don't think we've really shown it away from home yet. Like in Bergamo against Atalanta, great defensive performance that night. Didn't create too much going forward. I remember one Alex Vai shot. Zagreb, we were the better team that night. Did we create that much though? Again, I think it could have been better going forward, but pretty strong defensively. And apart from those 2 minutes at Villa Park where we looked unbelievable and obviously scored the 2 goals, don't think we created that much in that game either. So personally, and I know this is a hell of a lot to ask, this is a team, we love Celtic, we're a team that play in Scotland, and going to grounds like Atalanta's ground, whatever that's called, in Villa Park, and the Allianz tonight, and Signal Iduna Park earlier on. It's a hell of a lot to ask for this team to be defensively strong and also then carry a real threat going forward. We'll be kind of striving to win the competition if we ever get that fully mastered. But that's kind of what we're dealing with at the moment, and that's how perfect it's got to be tonight. So yeah, I don't think we've completely learned from Dortmund, if I'm totally honest. I mean, we were 2-0 down at Villa Park within 5 minutes, and that was our last away game in this competition. So I'd be lying if I said, I feel totally secure about the start of the game tonight. I am a bit worried that we lose an early goal and lose a second early goal. I really hope that's not the case. I think from the sounds of things, we're going to not be dragged into, really getting excited like we did at Dortmund. And hopefully as the game goes on, we can gain a bit of confidence, and then I think we will create chances tonight. Anyway, that was Brendan Rodgers. Interesting insight. Team news-wise, Rodgers, I think, did say everyone was available. Obviously, Paulo Bernardo isn't going to be available. He's going to miss 4 to 5 weeks. James Forrest may make the bench tonight, I guess. He's been back in training. Obviously not going to start the game. I think the team announcement will be very interesting. Left back and forward striker position probably going to be pretty, they're going to be the positions that people are most interested in. I guess this is where I should clarify that this is my predicted 11 for the game, the team I think will start, the team I think Brendan Rodgers will pick, rather than the team that I would necessarily go for, and I can tell you where those two differ. But yeah, this is a predicted 11. Kasper Schmeichel in goal, a back four of Alistair Johnson, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Austin Trusty and Greg Taylor. Midfield three of Callum McGregor, Arne Engels and Reo Hatate. And a front three of Nicholas Kuhn on the right, Jota on the left and Dyson Maeda through the middle. Now my own team, I would go with Jeff Schlupp tonight. I think, and it's a point one of my brilliant viewers made last week, and I'll try and find it and stick it on screen for you, but basically talking about the fact that Jeff Schlupp and Michael Elise, the Bayern right winger, know each other from being together at Crystal Palace, and it's a great point that I hadn't actually realised. And obviously Elise would be directly up against Schlupp if they both started tonight. I think actually last week Schlupp came on just as Elise went off from memory. But yeah, Schlupp would know about Elise and what he likes to do. And I think that would make a bit of sense to start him. I just feel like it's going to be Greg Taylor though, and hopefully he can put in a good performance. In terms of the kind of going forward stuff, it might be harsh on Adamida, who I think is doing quite well at the moment. But I just think you look at how the last half an hour went at Celtic Park and the mayhem that Dyson Maeda caused, and he really did unsettle Bayern a lot more than Ida did. I would start Maeda tonight, and I'd have Jota on the left, Kuhn on the right. I think that's a really exciting front three, and again we have to go and try and win and cause them some sort of threat. And then you've always got Adamida off the bench as well. So yeah, that's what I would go for. German Outlook Kicker actually went with the same predicted 11 as me, Celtic-wise. They've also posted the predicted Bayern team, and it reads Neuer, Stanisic, Upamecano, Kim, Guerrero, Kimmich, Goretzka, Elise, Musiala, Sané and Kane. Not a bad team at all. Official-wise for tonight, the referee is Benoit Bastien from France. In fact, everyone of the officiating team is French. Assistants are Hicham Zakrani and Aurelien Bertomeu. VAR is Willie Deliod, and assistant VAR is Benoit Milo. So a couple of Benoits in there. Benoit Bastien, the referee, has taken charge of two of our Champions League games, and both relatively recently. He was in charge of our win over Feyenoord at Celtic Park, last game we played last season in the competition. And he also was the man in the middle for our 3-1 home win over Leipzig this season. So 2 Celtic matches in the Champions League, 2 Celtic wins. A decent omen, but fair to say this is an altogether different task. Right, are you ready for a blunt assessment ahead of tonight's game? Well, I don't think there's too much chance of Celtic going through tonight. You look at Bayern Munich's record in these games, as Mark pointed out, when they win the first leg, they almost always go through. They don't lose games at home in this competition. 20 matches in a row they've not lost, and obviously they need to lose tonight in 90 minutes for us to have a chance of going through. On top of that, they're clearly just a much better team than us, with like world-class players playing in a much stronger league than us. So yeah, it's obviously extremely difficult. I'm not sure I can even really imagine a world where Celtic go through tonight. Sorry to kill all your buzz. Don't worry, I'll get you back going again before the end of the video. I do think that if we can keep it goalless for as long as possible, that's the best way here. Just stay in the match for as long as possible and maybe something happens. I guess the positive that I would cling on to is that this Celtic team can create chances. Again, I'm yet to fully see it at Champions League level away from home. I think we can be a bit careless with the ball. But like, you only have to kind of see some of the examples we have this season at Celtic Park in the competition. And also, but also in pre-season as well, when we looked electric on the counter-attack. To know that this Celtic team can hurt Bayern, especially if we have like the pace of Kuhn, Maeda, Jota as our front three. So there's opportunities for us. I think we'll score in the game tonight, which again is another positive. I just really hope we can be really resolute defensively. It's just so difficult. It was difficult last week at Celtic Park with everything in our favour. Going to the Allianz tonight is going to be tough. I just hope we come away pretty satisfied with how we feel about Celtic. I really hope it's not like a damaging night that leaves us kind of questioning things and with a bit of a bitter taste in our mouth coming out of the European campaign. It's been such a good season in the Champions League. Like, we'd all have signed up for tonight, 2-1 down, second leg in Munich in the last 24 of the Champions League. We would all have been delighted to sign up for that at the start of the season. So let's just go and try and enjoy tonight. I'm talking to the players, I know they're not watching, but go out and just go and represent Celtic and really show what good players you are, because we all know you're really good players, but show it at that top level. Bayern are a really good side. They're not completely unbeatable though, and we showed that in the final half an hour last year. So go in with belief, be strong defensively, but when you get the ball, let's make things happen. And if you fall short, no one's going to judge you in the Celtic support. No one realistically is going to expect Celtic to go through from the tie tonight. But what we do expect is a team not to fall apart. Let's see progress from Dortmund. And even if we go out tonight, if we've seen real progress from match day 2, and generally we have throughout the competition, then I think we can leave the tournament feeling very good about ourselves. But of course, you just never know. Miracle in Munich, I'll sign up for a bit of that. I'll return tomorrow morning, everyone, looking back in the game. Try to enjoy it.